Hi, everyone. So let's try that again. Transformed relationships with D. D and transformed relationships. How hilarious. So I could see from my sound input that I wasn't getting sound, and now I'm getting sound. So for any of you who are able to still be here, it's about 40 minutes past when I said I was going to be here. Thanks, Patty, for letting me know about the sound. So I'm going to do it again. I've got about 15 minutes before I have to go. Let's reintroduce with sound what T in transformed relationships is about. And I'll just post some of on the other video that doesn't have sound, some of the information to check out this video. So I will be doing it every Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern. So come along with your relationship topics. But the idea of T and transformed relationships is to discuss what is love and the how of making relationships last, or if a relationship's meant to last or not last, how to get the benefit of that, how to enjoy a new way of doing love. So the motto of transformed relationships, it's a movement that I've created. It's transforming the way that we think about love. So in completely transforming the way we think about love, the topic today is, I was inspired by the spaced video on chaos theory, how relationships don't happen unless certain events fall into place. And the topic for today that I'm sharing is a big concept of love that interfered with me finding my own ability to love and a partner. And it's called love. The topic today is love of your life does not equal long-term partner. Love of your life does not equal long-term partner. So let me give you the backstory of the love of your life and how it ruined my love life for a good time. I held on to this ideal of the love of my life and romance and meeting the one or someone. I wasn't so fixated on finding the one when I grew up, but I grew up in a culture and environment, which is still the case, but it's changing these days, where you have to meet the right person, marry and settle down. So the ideal in our culture was, when I grew up, you have to meet one person, the right person, marry them and settle down. I did the opposite. I met the wrong people, not just one person. I met the wrong people. I'd never settled down and I didn't get married. So I criticized myself eventually, because after a while, when you're in a culture that says you have to meet the right person, you start to think there's something wrong with you when it doesn't happen that way. Plus, I also had this romantic ideal of the love of my life, like I was going to meet someone that was going to transform me. After a while, what happens is, when you're on this journey for getting the love of your life, you realize that it's not about meeting somebody else to transform you. You realize it's about loving you. I worked that out about 10 years into my romantic relationships, around 30. And I think now in our culture, we've come to a great awareness collectively that when you love yourself, you will naturally attract relationships that are loving. You will naturally find relationships that create love where you feel able to create. Thanks, Patty. So Patty says sound is good. We're on. I'm going to be here for another about 10, 15 minutes because the love of my life is coming home soon. So this idea of the love of your life can be very damaging, as it was for me, because I kept on thinking that the long-term relationship that I was supposed to have was also supposed to be this romantic ideal of the love of my life. And it wasn't working out that way for me. So I was very critical of how my love life was going. So what I discovered in my mid-30s was this concept of the love of your life wasn't just about getting the right person in a perfect relationship. It was also about loving myself, accepting myself, and instead of judging how I'd gone from a relationship to relationship, what I started to do was look at how all the relationships were a gift in some manner, even the ones that were harsh, difficult, or painful, or the breakups were painful. I started to see how I got to experience different pieces of what love is for me, because I had no idea what love was, and all of those different relationships were teaching me what love was. And it basically wasn't my path to have one partner. That wasn't my journey. So well into my mid-30s, I finally surrendered that myth that I had to fit into some box that society says is love. So now I'm going to address where this concept of romance and meeting the love of your life can actually damage, and that's a strong word, but hinder your ability to create love in a relationship or to find the right person. So when we start to think, oh, I've got to meet the love of my life and they're going to transform me, it actually takes away from your ability to experience love in any situation. So, for example, you might go into dating and you'll start to judge this potential partner from the place of fear that they're not going to tick all your boxes, they're not going to give you that romance, or you might overcompensate and try to make them fit into that box or idea of the love of your life. So until you start to see how your stories of romance, your myths of romance that you've taken on as a child or through teenagehood or early adulthood, how they operate, how they dominate your psyche, until you start to get awareness of that, you actually start to project that on your potential partners. And when you get married to someone or build a long-term commitment, because not everybody's getting married, but they live together or say they're committed, you still start to project that myth of this romance that the person should be, or they should take me to bed this way, or they should initiate love this way, or they should bring me flowers, or they should talk to me in a certain manner. Why don't they text me? Why don't they answer my texts? We start to project our expectation of how our partners should be as well, from this myth of how if you really loved me, you would just know how to treat me right. So the concept of love of your life is a strong myth. Alain de Botton, I'll write his name later in the comments. He talks about the philosophy of love and concepts of romance that really destroy the how to love. And transformed relationships is all about the how. First, we've got to understand those concepts. We've got to transform the way we think love should be. And then I give you the how. I share with you the how through feeling, touching, sensing, and knowing. And I'm sharing that through a webinar, August 19th, 3 experiential techniques to feel what love could be. And that's going to sidestep the concepts of love. And also what I did once I was in my mid-30s and I blew up my judgment about having to fit into some box of what a relationship should be, I then realized I had no idea of what I wanted. So a lot of my relationships were experiments of just discovering, what do I want in a relationship? So I discovered techniques to love and feel love. And then no matter what I was doing, whether I was in certain other important relationships, like with my family, I could feel love. It didn't have to be romance and the love of my life. I could feel connection. I could feel the desire I have to share a certain fun story or an experience. And that naturally then gravitated my life partner to me, because as soon as I met my partner, I was like, you're like that. You're like the feeling that I naturally share when I'm loving. And it was very different to this concept I had of the love of my life. So the final piece I'm going to share about is long-term partner. So sometimes we want to have everybody tick all our boxes and guarantee with their handcuffs that they're going to marry us, they're not going to break up, they're going to be there. But the reality is 1 in 3 long-term marriages are in divorce, and some of the second and third relationships have a higher divorce rate, like 75% of those second and third marriages divorce. But if we go outside, because many people are not doing marriage, they're doing long-term partnership, those are breaking up at high rates as well. So the numbers could actually be bigger than we're aware of, or different in different cultures now. And a lot of traditional cultures are having long-term partnerships finish as well. So I wanted to share an example of a person I know who had this concept of the love of their life. When they were in their 20s, they had the romance experience of the movie like A Midnight in Paris, where you have this mystical meeting with someone in a different country. You both just connect. It's this magical night. And in the movie Midnight in Paris, they agree to meet each other the following year, but they somehow miss each other and they find each other 10 years later in the movies. In this person's experience, he met someone, had the magic, everything was perfect. She was the love of his life. But for whatever reason, they didn't continue. They didn't sustain the relationship. He then got married, and that marriage did not last. But during the marriage, he was always thinking about this other person, the love of his life. So after the marriage didn't continue, he then had another relationship. And during that relationship, he was also thinking about the love of his life. So meanwhile, between the relationships, he did connect to the love of his life. And they discovered that they had divergent lives. They were in different countries. They both made a decision not to move forward for different reasons. So for both of them, there was sadness, there was loss, and there was this holding on to a concept that somehow they missed an opportunity. And I think for a lot of us, we use this idea when we're in a long-term partnership. We use, if it's not the love of our life that our partner is not living up to, we use some of the feeling that we've missed an opportunity, or we run away from the partner that we have. That doesn't mean you always have to stay with the partner that you have if you feel like that partner's not fulfilling you. But that situation is a very big lesson to really discover, if I feel like I'm missing something here because I didn't get the love of my life, what is it that I'm really looking for? And I think this is the biggest question that most people don't look at when they're going into long-term partnership. They somehow want this mystical romance to solve their problems, rather than actually ask the question, if I'm feeling dissatisfied with my partner, what's actually missing here in me? Rather than thinking, oh, that person from my 20s that I could have, should have, would have been with or married, what's actually missing in you? What are you not seeing? What are you longing for? It's too easy to think about a way out of the current relationship you're in by some ideal of romance or the love of your life that your current relationship's not living up to. So transformed relationships is all about being aware of the myths of love that you operate from and how they keep you from feeling here. Those myths actually are really unconscious in our culture, but they're unconscious in you, in me. And it wasn't until my mid-30s when I lost this box of how I should be in a relationship that I then opened up my heart to, well, if I was going to be in a relationship, what would I like to bring? And this is the final bit before I finish. today, I would like to have your questions and comments on the video, any topics of love tribulations that you would like to address. I'd love to have those in the video so I can generate the next Wednesday tea and transformed relationship topic. And also, if you are looking for a way to experience that feeling, please join the August 19th webinar, 3 Easy Techniques to Love Again. That's where you get to really feel what I discovered when I lost that concept of love. I had to actually go, well, what I want to create in love, what I want to experience in love. And it took me about 3 years to really do a lot of that vision work, but now I do it all the time. I feel the love that I want to create. So those techniques are what I share in Transformed Relationships group coaching, and the webinars are a tasting of what you get to experience in the coaching. And what I discovered when I threw out the concept of romance and the myths that were running me and the judgments I had about not finding love in the right format, was that it meant I had a responsibility to the love I give to my partner, my future partner that I was calling in, and to the love that I'm prepared to give every moment of my life, whether it's to an animal or to a child or my neighbour or other people around me. That was really exciting. That was so transformational that I started to go, oh, if I don't live by a concept, I actually have to give something. Like I have to give joy or passion or laughter or creativity, these things that I'm naturally good at. That's love, giving those things. And not everybody's like got to be happy and perky and share love in that manner. Sometimes you can do really practical forms of love, but you got to know what exactly is the qualities of love that you give. And I spent 3 years really exploring what is it that I want to give to a relationship. Not what I just want to get, but obviously what you give to a relationship, we want to have received as well. It's once you get into unconditional love, you actually, every time you give, you are receiving anyway. But it's much more creative. And it becomes a way of not being in the myths of love that create us, or that created you as from your childhood. And it's much more empowering when you start to explore what you want to give in a relationship. Very passionate as well. So some of the topics I'm looking to help people with are about passion, intimacy, sexual intimacy, or sharing your body. The sex word on Facebook is not very popular. So if you've got questions around sharing your body, I'll reframe the word so we don't use the sex word. I don't want to be blacklisted. And if you have obstacles with finding partners, these are the topics that I love to talk about. I want to share transformational ideas about how to attract love, because it's so much more fun when we discover playful ways of bringing love into our lives. And that's what happened for me. Once I threw out the concepts of love, I started to play, and I started to explore what love is for me, which was so big that I started to build not just my business around it, but my lifestyle to explore, give myself places to explore that, and also invite partners who were able to join me to explore that as well. So if anyone has any questions now, you can type them in the chat. Any upcoming comments that you would like to share. I'm going to have to end the video now because the love of my life has just walked in the door. So we're going to end the video now, and then when you feel like posting any questions, if you've watched the video, just post them under the video, and then I can create the future tea and transformed relationship topics. Thanks, everyone.